Hello and welcome to V-Knowledge on Cinema. I'm Victor Omoayo, and today's film is Lost in Translation, starring Bill Murray, Scarlett Johansson, Giovanni Ribisi, and Anna Faris, written and directed by Sofia Coppola, and released in 2003. Sofia Coppola's Lost in Translation is made with an ingenuous and perceptive sensibility, working as an exploration in matters of loneliness, listlessness, finding one's purpose in life, and cultural/lingual isolation. Bill Murray stars as Bob Harris, a veteran actor who arrives in Japan to shoot some whiskey commercials. Despite the easy, high-paying gig, Bob is at a point in his life where he's burnt out and creatively unfulfilled. Meanwhile, Scarlett Johansson's character Charlotte contends with isolation both from her oblivious, self-absorbed husband and from being a stranger in a strange land. This is not a film driven by grandiose plot contrivances or scenery-chewing performance pieces. Instead, it is a film driven by and about feeling. What it is about is the minutiae of meaningful moments that pepper a relationship. There are two scenes in Lost in Translation that delightfully bookend the relationship between its two main characters. In both scenes, Bob and Charlotte meet at a bar in the hotel they are staying in. They sit at opposite ends of the frame, leaving empty space between them. She sits on the left, and he on the right. However, there's a difference in mood and feeling that they experience in the two scenes. When they have their first conversation, they ask each other what brought them to Tokyo and where they are at in their lives. Charlotte nurses her glass of vodka tonic, while Bob casually sips his cup of Suntory whiskey. Behind them reveals the nighttime Tokyo skyline from the window. The empty space between them conveys the gulf in age and experience between the two, as well as their mutual emptiness. The dim, cool lighting articulates their initial lack of knowledge. Their relations have yet to warm. Near the end of the film, Bob and Charlotte are at the same bar again, but by this time they have developed a deeper connection. As with their first conversation, they occupy the same edges of the frame, but the space between them is much smaller. The lighting is warmer from the golden glow of the light bouncing off their table, and Bob gently holds Charlotte's hand. Bob isn't eager to leave Tokyo behind, and Charlotte suggests that he should stay. Most other movies would use this exchange as an opportunity for predictable romantic proclamations and sentiment, but it is obvious from the film's first moments that melodrama is not in this story's nature. Arriving in Tokyo to film advertisements for Suntory whiskey, Bob's life is in a period of uncertainty, a midlife crisis as Charlotte puts it. Despite getting paid a handsome $2 million to hawk booze, he finds himself emotionally separated from his wife Lydia and their children. After 25 years of marriage, the energy in their relationship has long since dissipated. Career-wise, Bob perceives his status as a star equally diminished, lamenting that he could be doing a play somewhere instead of having his face plastered on Tokyo billboards with hard liquor, though the product does make things relatively bearable for him. Meanwhile, the younger and also despondent Charlotte accompanies her celebrity photographer husband John, played by Giovanni Ribisi, to Tokyo, though they spend far more time apart than not. A Yale philosophy graduate, she spends much of her time in their hotel room, sitting on the windowsill overlooking the city's skyline. She wanders through the bustling streets and subways, swept in the rush of residents while being unable to form any human connections. Charlotte feels stuck. She does not know what she wants to do or what she is supposed to be. Bill Murray's role as dejected movie star Bob Harris is a shimmering example of perfect casting. Operating in deadpan mode for the majority of the film, Murray derives more smiles and outright laughs from a staid glance and forlorn frown than some comedians do in exhausting physical routines. Two small but pretty amusing instances in particular demonstrate Murray's subtle yet striking appeal. Take a look at the scene where Bob is shooting the first of two Suntory whiskey commercials. The Japanese director is blustering at Bob with long-winded commands for the actor to follow, and the interpreter reduces his diatribes to slower, more intensity. In the second take of the commercial, as Bob is in the middle of delivering his line, he pauses and his eyes dart around as if to say, "What is this? how did I get from shooting movies to shilling whiskey? The moment is so small that one would probably not notice it at first. It is a genuinely funny moment that communicates Bob's bemusement and incredulity. One other instance occurs when Bob meets Charlotte in her hotel room as they prepare to hit the city nightlife. He notices one of her self-help CDs entitled A Soul's Search, Finding Your True Calling. She asks Bob, "Did it work out for you?" Bob, appearing stunned by the question, replies, "Obviously." Here, his startled pause and response implies his current outlook on his own life. On one hand, he has achieved his calling as a successful actor, yet the tone in his voice when he says "obviously" also sounds a bit defensive and wry. He is proud of his accomplishments, though the satisfaction from his career pales in comparison to the joy he used to gain from his own family. This tiny moment, along with his first commercial shoot, are just incidental flashes that we would normally not dwell on in any other film, yet it is these brief instances that sum up the essence of Bob's personality. The title, Lost in Translation, also refers to the miscommunication and lack of understanding between Bob and Charlotte's partners. Charlotte's husband John is entirely ignorant of his wife's loneliness. His mind is focused on pressing matters like taking pictures of vapid celebrities, as evidenced by Anna Faris's ditzy blonde starlet, Kelly, who gives inane, empty-headed answers at a press conference for her latest movie. We do not get the impression that John is a jerk. On the contrary, he does seem polite and well-intentioned. However, the responsibilities of being an empathic romantic partner are totally lost on him. He tells Charlotte not to smoke cigarettes without any conviction, sounding instead like an annoyed father reprimanding his child. She replies with apathy, "I'll stop later." Even Charlotte's intelligence acts as a barrier between her, John, and his own buddies. While John is enraptured at Kelly's sincere yet shallow tales of personal hardship, Charlotte tries to feign interest in her husband's friend's discussion about hip-hop production. She shuts the conversation down when she tells him that she doesn't understand what he means. To summon a cliched yet apropos saying, it is only Bob that legitimately gets her. Bob and his wife Lydia, unseen yet heard via telephone, deal with emotional translation issues of their own. We are not made privy to the full history of their marriage, yet from what we are shown, Lydia sounds insensitive and hostile towards her husband. She sends passive-aggressive faxes and messages reminding Bob to not forget their kids' birthdays, and makes vaguely combative remarks about banal matters such as what color carpet they should pick for his study at home. At one point, he tries to explain his desire to become healthier, referencing Japanese food as an example. All she does in response is shoot him a terse wisecrack about him just staying in Japan instead. Bob definitely loves their children, and maybe they are the only reason why Bob and Lydia are still together in the first place. That and the money. Lost in Translation is a thing of beauty, not only thematically and emotionally, but especially visually. Cinematographer Lance Accord presents the magnificent urban sleekness of Tokyo with an appreciative and reverent eye. He employs repeat shots on a few occasions to convey the deepening connection between Bob, Charlotte, and the city itself. One of the earliest shots in the film sees Bob staring out in awe at the neon lights of the buildings illuminating the nighttime as he rides in a cab. Later, Charlotte also looks out of a cab window with a newfound appreciation for Tokyo, in contrast to her tearful frustrations from earlier. Prior to their cab ride, Bob and Charlotte hang out with some acquaintances of hers and rock out to some karaoke. Bob, clearly having more fun than he has ever had in who knows how many years, sings to Charlotte, "There's nothing more than this." And it is true. After their karaoke session, they chill outside in a quiet, narrow hallway. She rests her pink-wigged head on his shoulder as they stare at the walls. Words aren't exchanged. There is no need. Since the release of the film, a slew of questions have been raised about what Bob whispered in Charlotte's ear before his departure. Whatever they have said is irrelevant to the rest of us. It is for them and them alone. Besides, after all the time we have spent empathizing with Bob and Charlotte, we can and should allow them one shared moment of privacy, even if it is on screen. Their presence in the moment articulates everything that words would only make redundant. We are left with the feeling of their goodbyes, and we won't forget the impression they leave on us as they have made on each other. Lost in Translation was one of the most critically lauded films of 2003, earning much-deserved accolades in several award circles, including the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. And it's one of those films that holds infinite replay value, and it gets better with each successive viewing. And every time I watch it, I always come away with just a little bit more than I did the last time I saw it. And as always, thank you for watching. I'm Victor Omoayo, and you can find more video essay goodness on my V Knowledge channel.